welcome back to Chromatic Knits. My name is Michelle, and this is my podcast all about knitting, music, and life. You can find me on Instagram as chromatic_knits, and you can find me on Ravelry as Chromatic Knits, and I'm here with Andrea today. It has been a minute. Oh my goodness. I did not intend for it to be this long, and sorry if you see the light glare in my glasses. I don't normally wear glasses when I podcast for this reason, but that's what we're going with today. So the reason that I've been gone so long is because I've been having some issues with my eyes. So when I go to get allergy tested, normally they test you for like outdoor allergies, indoor allergies, like trees and pollen and grass and dust and mold and all that stuff. And basically I usually test positive for everything, or at least almost everything. And basically the doctor this year, he was like, yeah, so you shouldn't go outside because you're allergic to outside. And I was like, okay. He's like, but you're also allergic to inside. And I was like, so I should live in a bubble? He's like, yeah. He's like, basically, you just need to take medicine and hope for the best. And I was like, okay. Well, some part of inside or outside that I'm allergic to got into my eyes and caused a rash on the inside of my eyelids, which made it really hard to keep my eyes open. And I basically looked like a pirate. Well, first of all, I was squinting really bad and blinking a ton. And then eventually my right eye cleared up enough that I could keep it open. And my left eye has stayed closed for a long time. So I went to the doctor, I got drops, did all the things, and now I can see with both eyes again for the most part. At some point you may see my left eye close again. We're getting there. It's a lot better than it was because now it's closed maybe 5% of the day, and before it was closed 100% of the day. So we're getting there, one step at a time. But just in case you see that happen, that is what's happening. That is where I've been. That is what's going on. But I am so glad to be back. I have so many things to share, and just because I couldn't see anything doesn't mean I wasn't knitting, because I was. A lot. So I have a ton to share, a ton to catch up on. So let's get into it. Before I bring out all of my knitting, feel free to grab your knitting, your crochet, your laundry, your lunch, whatever it is that you're working on, or maybe just a nice cup of tea. And let's get into it. So I have finished objects. I know, miracles do happen. So my first finished object is I finished my Shawlography shawl by Stephen West. This was the 2021 MCAL. Showing you the wrong side. No, showing you the right side. Anyway, so last time I showed it, I was here. So I've done basically all of clue 3 and 4 in the border. I decided to do the border. I know a lot of people have said that the border looks kind of circus tent-ish, but I think with my colors, it doesn't so much because they kind of blend into each other. I have several colors that are very similar. So I have like 2 dark purples, and I have like a mauve and a light pink that kind of blend into each other too. So for me, I don't get circus tent vibes from it. And I really like the way it looks on. The only things that I would do differently if I were to knit this again would be to, instead of, this is how it looks on. See, I'm not really getting the circus tent vibes from it. I don't know, I like it. The only thing that I would change is I'm not 100% sold on these loops here. These I-cord loops. If I were to do it again, I would make it shorter so they were just lines. So they would just be straight and connect there instead of loop out. But that's really the only change that I would make. I really enjoyed knitting this shawl. It's super easy once you get the stitch patterns down, and they are pretty memorizable from section to section. And as I've said on this podcast before, I have ADHD, like I've been formally diagnosed and all of that. So having a pattern that changes so often, see there's all the different sections and all the different stitches and all of the different things, is really good for me because it keeps my attention and it keeps me interested in it. Because one thing that a lot of people with ADHD struggle with, if you don't know anyone with ADHD or you aren't familiar with what ADHD is that we get hyper focused on things. So, which means that we can get really, really into something, and then if it doesn't keep our interest, then we'll go on to something else and get really into that. So it makes it so that we're kind of like jumping all over the place, and it's kind of that jack of all trades, master of none kind of mentality. So this was really good for that, kept me interested. And for the first time, I chose, so this section here, right here, I chose to do brioche, but there was an option for eyelets. I'd never done brioche before, and I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend his Stephen West's video on Clue 4 that shows you how to do the brioche if you've never done brioche before, because he made it super simple and super easy to follow. So would highly recommend. I really like how it turned out. It looks like a piece of art to me, because it is, obviously, but some shawls I'm just like, I was really nervous because, it's an MCAL, right? You don't know what it's going to look like, and I really hoped for a crescent shape, which we got, and I really hoped for using all the colors. The only other thing I have to say, and using all the colors, mixing them together is what I mean, which you get a lot of in this shawl, hence the name Shawlography. The only criticism that I have about this shawl is that you buy 5 skeins of yarn, which you don't end up using all of them. You end up with a lot of scraps. So I probably have between a full skein and a skein and a half of scraps left. Like there's big like 30, 40, 50 grams left of skeins. So it's like we could have done something more, before the border. I feel like there could have been something else to continue the shawl down before we did the border. That's just me. But other than that, I really enjoyed it. Would highly recommend it if you haven't knit a Stephen West pattern before, or if you are intimidated by Stephen West and his patterns. This is definitely a good one to start with. It's a lot of just knit stitch and purls, and then basic increases and decreases. So if you know how to do that, and just drop stitches and things like that, so if you know how to handle that, or not drop stitches, slip stitches, this is a no-brainer. Like, this is the shawl for you. So that is one FO. I have also finished my Find Your Fade shawl. So I've gone over the yarns before, so if you're interested in that, please look back at the other episodes. This thing is massive. So the major change that I made to this pattern is that the pattern calls for 7 skeins of yarn. And I chose to knit with 4 skeins of yarn, because when you add up the amount of yarn that you actually need to complete this pattern, it's roughly 400 grams. So I chose to go with 4 colors instead of 7. And I know you guys are going to ask, well, did you run out? Of course I ran out. I used 4 skeins instead of 7. But that's not the point. Did I get to the last section? Yes. Will you be able to even notice? Yeah, I didn't weave in my ends. Just pretend like that happened. Did I get to the last section though? Yes, I did. And will the person that's receiving it even notice that it's like a couple inches shorter than it should be? No, because the thing is already massive. So we're good. We're good with this gigantic wrap that I can't even hold out because it's too big for my wingspan. So this is finally done. This was one of my things, like the last pattern on my list of things that I wanted to, my goals for 2022. One of them was to start and finish this pattern, this project, which I did. So check. One of the other things on the list was I wanted to finish a Stephen West pattern, which I did with the Shawlography. So check on that as well. And I wanted to knit something for myself, which the Shawlography is for me. This is not, but the Shawlography is for me. So again, another check. So we are getting through our yearly goals. It is almost halfway through the year, but we're doing it. And that's what matters. So that is FO number 2. FO number 3. So in October, November, I can't remember. Oh, by the way, I love this bag. This is a Joji Locatelli bag. This is Joji & Co., rather, which is owned by Joji Locatelli. I love this bag. 10 out of 10. But, so anyway, what I was saying. In October, November, I had to go out of town for a family thing and didn't have any small projects to bring with me. So I cast on a pair of socks. And then when I got back, I put them in the UFO pile because I wanted to finish all my Christmas knitting. And this was not for Christmas. This was just because I needed a small project. So I knit a pair of socks for my partner. These are just basic vanilla socks, shorties, using Knit Pick Stroll in the forest colorway. I used the Crazy Sock Ladies vanilla socks using Magic Loop pattern. And the other reason that this took forever, also so this is where I was. I had only done the first sock up to there. So I finished the rest of this sock and did the whole second sock. And this is a Suker Miniatures. It's just a little snowman cookie because it was still winter when I worked on this. But the other reason that these took me forever to complete is because Aria, my dog, I love her to death. But she grabbed, so I had 2 balls of the Stroll yarn because making this size, making men's size 10.5 socks, takes a lot of yarn. There's no way to do it in a 50 gram ball. So I had 2, and she got into the second one and strewed it everywhere. Everywhere. It was a hot, tangled mess. So I just had this big heap of yarn on my desk that was just like, I just kept ignoring and being like, I will deal with that later. I don't want to deal with that now. And it just sat there forever until finally I was like, we need to finish these socks and get them done. So I picked them back up. They are now done. I can now give them to my partner like 12,000 months later. But it's another FO. And it's not another pattern. It's not a whip that's been sitting in my closet for months. So those 3 things have cleared the needles. Now, the next one I'm going to argue is a partial FO. Because, and not a half FO, not a hoe, but because this has multiple parts. So I started making the Mitten Advent Garland pattern, which I will put the name of the designer on the screen. And basically you knit a different mitten for every day in December. So the first 24 days for Advent. So each one of these is a little colorwork mitten. So that's day 1. One is on that side. And then day 2. So it's colorwork on both sides. 3. And I have loved working on these. Like, I'm just cranking them out. There's 2 or 5 and there's 6. So far I have 6 done. They'll be hanging like this, actually. So I just held them all upside down, which is fine. So they'll be hanging from a garland like this. So my partner, these are for my partner. So I'm going to be making her a Mitten Garland advent calendar. So every day I'll put something in one of the mittens for her to open during Advent. This pattern is super addictive. I've been just constantly knitting on these. I have number 8 on the needles already. And I just can't stop knitting them. So these are knit out of Knit Picks palette, which is 100% Peruvian wool, I believe. Yes, Peruvian Highland wool. So the red is pimento, and then there's white, and then the gray is dove heather, and then the dark gray is the ash colorway. This wool, because it's not superwash, really fills in the gaps. So you can see there aren't really any gaps in here. It just fills in nicely. And I will be blocking these. So Ellie of Scandier Knits, she actually made these in the very early days of her podcast. She knit the whole thing and she blocked it by cutting foam board into little mitten shapes, and then she just put those inside of the mittens and wet blocked them that way. So I'm gonna at some point go get some foam board and start and cut out little pieces to insert to block them so that they all look flat and they all look uniform. But yeah, and I know the ends aren't sewn in either, but I would say that each of those is an FO because they take a lot of time, and because they're color work, and because you have a completed object. Really, you have a mitten when you're done with each one. So I would highly recommend that pattern. It's up on Ravelry. I don't know if it's available other places. I will try to link to it down below. I think it is available other places, but I'm not sure where. So if you just Google Mitten Advent Garland, and I'll put the name of the designer on the screen if I haven't already, so that you can find it anywhere. And if I find another link, I will put it down below as well. So as far as color work goes, because I've not really shown a color work pattern on here before, except the shark mittens, but I don't think I talked about it then. So the way that I do color work is the way that Arna and Carlos do color work. So if you're not familiar with Arna and Carlos, they are a Norwegian designing duo. They create their own designs. They have knitting cruises that they do. They have their own podcast. They do this, they do a podcast every Wednesday called Sit and Knit for a Bit. And then every Sunday they have a technique video that they put out. It's super handy, and they have a lot of them on color work because they are Norwegian. So you see a lot of color work in Norwegian projects. And the project that they're the most famous for is their Christmas balls book that came out a few years ago, which is all color work. So it's a little ball ornament that you stuff, and that has on each side there's an image of something. So whether it's a deer or an angel or whatever it is, a bell, Christmas things, right? So which I may be making some of those as well, I don't know, but those look also very addictive. But so basically their method is that you just grab the yarn that you're working with. So some people do it where they have both hands going. They have one, their dominant color in one hand and their other color in the other hand, and they just knit with both hands. I cannot do that. There are a few things in life that I can do with both hands at the same time. One of them is playing the piano, and the other one is typing on a keyboard. That's about it. So that's not gonna happen. Yeah, no. So the way that I do it is the way that Arna does it on their podcast. So the way that he does it is basically you just drop the yarn you're not using anymore, and you pick up you literally just pick up off the table the yarn that you need, and then you just switch so that you're only using one hand at a time. I am a thrower, so I use my right hand. Arne is a picker, so he uses his left hand, but either way, he's not having multiple strings at the same time. There is another way if you do knit continental where you can have both, and Ellie of Skandir has a really good video. I will try to link it down below, of how to do that. And there are these little rings that you can get where you can put each string, like each strand of yarn, through a loop in the ring so that it keeps them separate so they don't get crossed and mixed up on your finger. That looks like a lot of work, and I'm really bad at things with my left hand because I am hardcore a right hand person, so I'm not going to do that. So the way that I do it is that I just pick up the one that I need when I need it, and it makes it so that I don't have a dominant color in my knitting. All my colors are treated the same, they're knitted the same, so none of them are a dominant color. And you don't have to worry about trying to hold 3 strands at the same time. In some of the parts of these mittens where you do have multiple colors, you have 2 to 3 colors going at a time. So you don't have to worry about that. You just drop the one you're not using, pick up the one you need, and knit with it that way. So if you're interested in seeing how I do that, if you're interested in a tutorial or anything like that, comment down below and I might make one if there's interest. So if not, I'll also be linking Arna and Carlos's video down below so that you can see how they do it, because I basically just copy their method. So that is it for color work knitting. And again, I just keep knitting them. They're super addictive. Loving that. So since I cast off some other things, I've obviously been casting on things. So I cast on those mittens. I cast on this next whip, which is a garter stitch blanket. So this I've knit using Karen Big Cakes. So they're kind of a self-striping acrylic yarn. Excuse me. Oh, my allergies are crazy. So yeah, so it's just a self-striping cake. This I can do during movies, or I can do during work meetings, or whatever, when I don't need to use a lot of brain power to do this, because it's just straight garter stitch. The friend that wanted the Find Your Fade requested a blanket, so I knit this, and there's no pattern. I just cast on 300 stitches. This is worsted weight. I'm using size 10 needles. And we're just going from there. I have, excuse me again. Excuse me. Oh my gosh. Post-nasal drip and allergies are real right now. Anyway, so what was I saying? Garter stitch blanket. I just wanted to keep it easy and simple. I think at the end this will be about a queen size blanket, because I have 5 of those big cakes in stash. So I didn't buy them, I just had them, and was like, hey, I can make you a blanket, because she asked me to make her a blanket. And I said, I have this yarn, is that okay? And she was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. So I'm just trying to use up my stash. I know, I'm using from stash. Imagine that. So, sorry about that. Oh my goodness. Allergies are killing me. Oof. Down in Arkansas, everything is blooming and everything is going crazy out in nature, and it's just making me go crazy inside. Oh my goodness. Okay, so I cast that on. That will get done in 2050 because it's gonna take me forever, but we'll get there. I've already knit through one of the cakes, and I'm into the second cake, so I'm hoping to get through the second one soon, but we'll see where I get to. how far I get. The other thing I cast on was, one of my goals for this year was to cast on, not necessarily finish, but cast on a sweater. So, I have finished the first section of this sweater. So this is a basic Raglan sweater. It's called the basic Raglan sweater. This is the basic Raglan sweater by Locatelli. I really like her patterns, and I really like the way she writes them. So this is the first section. I'm about to split for the sleeves here in a hot second. This pattern is super easy to read. Would highly recommend as a first sweater pattern. I didn't get gauge, but I'm not super worried about it. And worst case scenario, if it doesn't work out, I'll just rip it out and start again. It'll be fine. So, I am using woolly knit. So they come in cones. This is their British wool in the mustard colorway, as you can tell. There are little flecks of green in it though, if you can see that. You might be able to see it better on the cone. Kind of a little greenish speckle, not really speckle, but kind of a hue in there occasionally. So I got these originally, the cones originally, to go with Creabea's Cone Along, because she had partnered with Woolly Knit, but because it's in England, or I don't know if it's in England, it's in Great Britain somewhere. They took forever to get here because it's international shipping and customs and all of that. So they didn't make it here in time for that, but that's fine because I still wanted to use it. This is British wool, so it is not superwash. And holding it double, so I'm holding it double because basically that's lace weight, but if you hold it double, then it makes it more of a DK weight. Which is what I wanted because that's what this is knit out of, is a DK weight. And yeah, I'm really liking the way that it's knitting up. It is next to skin soft, so I'm not worried about it being scratchy or anything like that. I will probably end up wearing something underneath this anyway, just because I have a really loose gauge. Just in general, I'm a loose knitter. So you probably can see through it, but I'm not worried about it. That's what camis are made for. That's how life works, right? Just put a cami under it, you're good to go, no matter what it is. So yeah, but I'm really enjoying it. I have one more section and then I split through the sleeves, so that'll be coming up soon. And then I'm gonna try it on. So this past weekend I went to Yarn Candy with a K, which is a store in Little Rock, Arkansas, because I don't have a yarn store here in Jonesboro. And she has these things called candy cords. I've seen them other places called other things, but basically it's just a plastic tube that you can put into your stitches so that you can try on the garment. So I got a couple of those so that I can try it on. So right when I'm splitting for the sleeve, I'm going to try it on, which is a good thing that it's top down too, so you can try it on as you're knitting it. And then that way, if it doesn't fit, or if it's too long, or whatever it is, then I can rip back, make the adjustment, and then continue on. So the other thing about this pattern is that she just released a few weeks ago 2 additional sizes, so now it goes up to 6X, so it is a very size inclusive pattern. I believe it goes from extra small all the way to 6X. So if you are one of those people like me who need those bigger sizes, they are available. You don't have to sit there and do the math. I believe the largest size is a 66 bust circumference. And there isn't really any ease with that. That's like the finished size. So, but that is a really, size inclusive pattern. So if you need those larger sizes like I do, they are available for you to use them. which is another reason why I love Joji Locatelli patterns. This is my third pattern by her, because I've done her Storm Shawl a couple of times, and I've done one of her cowls. Oh, it was such a big, like, it was really popular as a shawl, and then she came out with a cowl, and I did the cowl instead of the shawl. If I think of what it is, I'll put it on the screen. But it was a couple years ago, and I made it for my mom for her birthday or Mother's Day or something. But yeah, so highly recommend her if you've never knit any of her patterns. She's an Argentinian artist who she owns Joji & Co, and then she's also a designer, and she has a bunch of books, as well as that she partners with another designer, and she has this book series. I think it's called Traditions. And then she has her own individual patterns that she comes out with as well. And she also has a podcast it's like Joji's Knitting. And Joji is spelled Joji because it's Spanish. So the J's sound like H's, are pronounced like H's in Spanish. So I think it's called Joji's Journal. It's Joji's Journal or Joji's Knitting Journal, something like that. But if you just look that up in YouTube, it'll come up, because she just came out with a new episode yesterday, I think, 2 days ago, something like that. So it will have been a couple days after I post this. But you should be able to check those out there. She had another podcast before that, but I think it was in Spanish. I can't remember. So I'm bilingual in Spanish and English, so like half the time I can't remember what language stuff is in, because it doesn't matter to me which language it's in, if that makes sense. So yeah, but she has the Joji's Knitting podcast, or I think Joji's Journal is in English. So if you need English, that one is in English. She has another one that's older that I believe is in Spanish. So both of those are available. She also does a lot of like YouTube or Instagram lives, and she does a lot of Instagram content. So you can also find her as a designer and as Joji & Co on Instagram as well. So those are all places to find her. And then my last whip is I pulled out of hibernation, which is actually in a Joji & Co bag. So talking about how much I love her stuff, her bags and everything. This is my Slipstravaganza Blanket. So this had been sitting in timeout for a while. And I've dropped some stitches. Hold on. Brief pause while I panic. So this is another Stephen West pattern. This was not 2021, but 2020's Mystery Knit Along shawl. So if you've seen any of those, that is what this is. And I started working on it last summer. And then it went into hibernation because it's just one of those things. Like I said, I have ADHD, and it's tough for me to stick with any one project. So this ended up going into hibernation for a bit. But I finally took it out of the closet and started working on it again. So this pattern is knit in DK weight, and so I basically picked most of my yarn from stash, which was good because I have a lot of stash. A lot of stash. And okay, I think I got it all. Wait, I think I'm missing this one. Sorry, guys. You know that panic when you drop stitches and you're like, ugh. Okay, so hopefully I'll be able to figure that out. Anyway, so this is a Stephen West pattern. This is the Slipstravaganza Blanket. I had previously finished up to this teal honeycomb, and then I finished the bear color honeycomb, and then I started the next section. So this pattern has, let's see, 4 colors. So the black is an overdyed black. So underneath it, there's like purples and greens and teals and things. So you can see those colors kind of popping through the black, and then it's overdyed with black. So it's really cool. It's called Black Magic. And then the purple is Drops Lima. And I can't remember the number color, but I'll put it down below. And then this is a Homespun House Monstera in her DK base. And then this is Knit Picks Swish DK in the bear. It's just bear Swish DK. Because usually during the summer they have a sale on their bear yarn. So I got it during that time. But I'm knitting these on, so it calls for 2 Addy 60-inch needles. So I have this set, and they're not, these are fixed circulars. So I have this set, and then I have another set in the bag ready to go. Let's see, I have the drops here. So this is the Drops Lima. This is 65% wool, 35% alpaca, and let's see if I can get a color number. Color number 4377. So it looks like that. If you haven't used Drops yarn before, it's super affordable. Would highly recommend. It's like $3 a 50-gram ball. You can get it on Etsy. That's the best place I've found to get it in the United States. If you live in Europe, you can get it a lot of other places because it's a European yarn. But yeah, so I'm really enjoying knitting this up, working on this again. It's just like the Shawlography is a lot of different sections and a lot of different stitches and different stitch patterns and things like that. So I'm really enjoying that. It, again, keeps my interest, keeps me focused. The ADHD part of my brain can handle it. So, yeah, so it just needs a little bit of an extra boost sometimes from those projects that have those sections is really helpful and helps keep me going. But one of the reasons why I knit on that mitten pattern, why I'm knitting on that the most, is because I have 2 blankets, and a sweater on the needles, which all take a long time to knit. So I needed something that's like short-term gratification that I'm going to be able to finish quickly. So that mitten pattern is really helping with that. I'll probably, after I'm done with those mittens, I'll probably start another project that's a short-term project as well, just kind of getting that balance between large projects and small projects. Do you deal with that? Do you have a mix of projects going at any time, or do you just stick with one? I'd love to hear how you knit. Please comment down below. What is it, a monogamous knitter or a polyamorous, I guess, knitter? And then, yeah, so this blanket is also for me. So again, another Stephen West pattern, another thing for me. So I really do want to get it done. It's going to be massive. I'm doing the large size. There are 2 sizes. There's a small size and there's a large size. And I'm like, if I'm going to do it, go big or go home. So that is where we're at. Some other things I wanted to talk about this week is that I signed up for the Pip and Pin idea course. So it's basically a course that goes over how to create a knitting pattern. So one of my goals for this year was to create my own knitting pattern. So never done that before, have no idea how to do it, but this course has everything in it that you would ever need to know, and I'm just starting it this week. I'm super excited to learn everything I need to know to get that first pattern created, thought up, put down on paper, put into the computer, and put out there for the world. So hopefully that will be soon, but this course it started, like I said, this week. I'm really enjoying it so far, and if you get a chance in the future to take it, or if you are at all interested in design, like, this is the course for you, for sure. It is a bit expensive though, I will tell you that. It is 440 Canadian dollars. So depending on where you live, it might be cheaper or more expensive for you. But you can do it in multiple payments, which is what I'm doing, because I don't have $440 straight out the bat to spend on anything. So that is what so that is something that I am doing. Another thing that's coming out that I would really love to do but just can't do at this time is Nitty Natty. Natalie of Nitty Natty is coming out with her Perfect Fit sock course again. It's coming out on Monday at noon. So depending on when this comes up. And then if you get on the wait list, so she has a wait list on our website, which I believe is nittynatty.com, you can get earlier access to this sign up. If you get on the wait list, you get like an email emailed to you, So I would definitely check that out as well if you're interested in knitting on socks. But those are the big things coming out for knitting. That is all the knitting that I've done. That is a lot of knitting. That is 1, 2, 3, 4 whips and 3 finished objects. That is the most I've ever had on this podcast. And yeah, I'm gonna keep it up. But one thing that I wanted to get into this week is I wanted to get into stash organization. So one thing that I got for my birthday, so my birthday was in April, was my partner got me one of those cube shelving units. So I got one from Target, and I put it together, and I have a massive stash. So I've been reorganizing my stash, going through, figuring out what I want to keep, what I want to give away, and what, I'm still interested in, because I think that if you're not in love with your stash, then you're not going to use it. And if you're not going to use it, then why have it? So there may be a de-stash here in the future. If there is, I will let you know. It will probably be on Instagram. But I've been going back through my yarn. So one of those, so it's 4x4. Yeah, 4 across, 4 down. Cubes, and it's 3x4, sorry. So it's 4 tall, 3 across. And then I have 3 bins on top. So I've filled all of the cubes except the bottom right cube is still empty. But that is just the fingering weight yarn. So we haven't even gotten into all of the DK and the worsted and Aran and whatever bulky that I have. It's a lot. Like a lot. So I need to get another one. But I am very interested in hearing how you organize your yarn. Would you be interested to see how I organize my yarn, my stash? I'm more than happy to film that process, especially after I get the second cabinet that I'm going to need in order to fit the rest of my yarn. Hopefully. I won't need 3, but we'll see. We'll see what happens. How do you organize your yarn? I would love to hear all about those. There are tons of videos on YouTube from people like Nitty Natty, I know has some, where she talks about organizing her stash. There are tons of stash tours and stash organization videos and everything, but how do you store your stash? I would love to hear all about that. I have been stressing out because originally I had all of my yarn in plastic bags so that they would be protected more from bugs, but have since taken them out of the bags because of where they are. They're not really going to be able to get bugs in there. And to make it more visible, and because if you have plastic bag on plastic bag, there's no friction, so they just slide all over the place and it becomes a mess. So I got frustrated and I took them out of the bags and have just been basically shoving them in and as much as I can into each of those cubes to make it fit, and have been organizing it by color. So I've been trying to keep certain colors together, like blues and purples together, greens and teals, those kinds of colors together, reds together, light colors, so like pastels and whites together, self-striping together, those types of categories, just having a bunch of different categories for each of those, and then just having like a miscellaneous, kind of like the junk drawer version of a cube, like all those random variegated yarns that you get that don't really fit into any of those categories. So those are all together at the bottom. And I have all my sweaters quantities together in a special bin, and any kits that I've gotten for whether it's a shawl or whatever kind of project it is. So I have those all together in bins. But anything else that you guys can think of that would be helpful, or that you found helpful, or that work for you. I'm thinking about getting cedar balls to put in my stash to deter any kind of bugs or anything that would want to get into them. Have you found that helpful? What are some things that you do with your stash? I would love to hear all about that in the comments down below. So like I said, I need to get at least one more of those. At least one more. And I have some things that won't be going in the shelf. Like I have a bunch of advent calendars and things that won't be going in the shelf. Because having a bunch of minis in a shelf is tough. And some of them I want to kind of keep them together because they're all made by the same person, right? So like, I don't know, I just want to keep them together by brand or by kit. So how do you store your advent calendars that you haven't used right away? I have a bag already full of minis, and then I have the advent calendars boxed up still because I'm thinking of making projects with them in order, just going random by order, by like the daily order. So like start with number 1, go to 24. But what have you done with your advents? Because I have several. And I love them, and I love getting them, and I love opening them, but then I don't know what to do with them. So one of them, the Homespun House advent that I got last year for Christmas time, last advent, has a pattern with it. So there's a blanket, like a throw blanket pattern in there. So I'm going to be making that. But if you have any other ideas, also, if you have any ideas for scraps, so like I said with that Shawlography, I have a ton of scraps left over, and yeah, I'm going to put it into my Cozy Memories blanket, and yeah, I can make another pattern, I guess, of a scrappy project, but what do I do with them? And they don't have any nylon in them, so I don't want to make scrappy socks. So if you have any ideas of anything else that I can do with them, I would greatly appreciate it. Because I have so many scraps and so many just minis, just because minis are so addicting, that I just don't know what to do with them. So any suggestions that you have, I would love to hear all about it. Please comment down below and let me know, or you can message me on Instagram or on Ravelry. Again, I would love to hear from you in any or all of those places. And then, so like I said, another thing that has come out of my stash is that I have some stash to give away. So what I would like to do is because I know that this is the first episode out after a long hiatus, I'm going to make this a month-long giveaway. So the way to enter the giveaway is you can either comment down below, or you can tag Chromatic Knits in a picture of your knitting on Instagram. So again, it's chromatic_knits on Instagram if you want to do it there, or you can comment down below on this video on YouTube. What I would like you to comment, so you can either tag me in a picture of either your stash organization and tell me about your stash organization. You can comment down below about your stash organization. You can take a picture of a whip that you're working on, or tell me about a whip that you're working on down in the comments. You can, I want to hear about how your knitting is going, what you're knitting on, how you organize your stash, how you organize your knitting, whether it's your whips, your finished objects, any of that. So all about organization. So tell me all about that for the next couple of weeks, okay? So we're starting this. Today is May 21st. This will go out possibly by Monday. So let's say that we're going to go through the end of June. No. Let's go until June. Let's see. The 28th is a Saturday. Let's say June 21st. So it'll be a month from today. So you have all of that time. I will remind you in the next podcast as well in 2 weeks time that you still have time to enter. But please comment down below. You can tag me in an Instagram story or in an Instagram post, not in a story, because in case I miss it, I don't want to miss your entry. So in a post, tag me in a post, or comment down below. You can enter either of those ways, and then I will random generator pick a winner. I will have multiple winners because I have multiple skeins of yarn to give away. This is for let's say North America and Europe. So if you're in North America or Europe, I would love to send you yarn. So feel free to, so if you're in America, if you're in Canada, if you're in Mexico, or if you're in Europe, including the Great Britain, even though it's not technically Europe, whatever, the EU, but it's still Europe. So if you're anywhere in Europe or you're anywhere in North America, feel free to comment down below. I would love to send you some yarn. So that is it for this week. That's all the knitting, all the things, all the life things that have been going on. And I will talk to you in 2 weeks' time. Oh, I need to talk about music. That's the other thing. My music recommendation for this week. Sorry, my sinuses and everything, being out of practice of this. Oh my goodness, I'm so sorry. But my music recommendation, which I will put a link down below to a good performance of it, is called Nightshades. It's a trumpet piece. And it's actually a mix of trumpet and flugelhorn, but it's just really different, and it's a really interesting piece, and I will put a recording down below of somebody playing it. But it just gets me like in a nice cool mood, like a nice chill mood, and I really like it and I really enjoy it. So I will link that down below. But that is it for this week. So enjoy your knitting. I will see you in 2 weeks. Happy knitting, everybody. Bye.